Thanks for listening to PoliticalStorm.com. We've got a very interesting political race going on right now, whether you're on the Democrat side or the Republican side. We're hearing all kinds of things about a giant wall being paid for by Mexico. Others that are saying we're going to tax the rich until everybody has free health care and free college. People flip-flopping on issues. FBI investigating people's political past. So the big question is, will the next president force the Fed to raise rates? That's a big question on a lot of people's minds. We're reaching out right now to Sal Buscemi, and he's actually an author and an investment banker. Sal, how are you today, sir?
John, it's a pleasure and a privilege. How are you today?
Fantastic. I'm excited to chat with you. I know as I'm looking through the information here, you've raised millions of dollars for real private equity funds, and you're saying that right now there is some room for optimism, so I love to hear that.
There is. I mean, depending on who's getting into office, you have to remember that this country is in debt, and it's not just America. It's a global phenomenon right now. And they have, everything is controlled by the central banks, the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve. A lot of people don't understand that. They think inflation grows on trees, but also they think interest rates are something that is dictated by the market. Over the past 12 years, since the unfortunate events in September 11th, 2001, rates have been artificially low, and that's been a tax on savers because it robs wealth. Because it doesn't allow people such as our parents' age, they were able to retire on savings with an interest rate with a passbook savings account or put it into high-yielding government bonds. Today, government bonds are trading around 1.5%, less than 2%. So it's robbing savers and it's forcing people to be savers to take risk into the stock market, which is something where they have absolutely no control.
So as an expert investor, right now, as you're looking at the options that we currently have for president, is there one that you say, economy-wise, this person would be probably the best choice?
Yeah, I would say, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners would not agree with this, but just through the New York circles and what I know, Trump would be probably someone who would disintermediate himself from the Federal Reserve and probably be able to raise rates and really force things to happen where he would give that precious interest rate back to the savers, pensioners, and retirees. That's really what I believe, because anything other than that, if you listen to a lot of these candidates, it sounds like that there's a lot of commingling between different policies, and all of that adds to a lot of expenses. If you were to get someone like Bernie Sanders into office, all bets are off. You might see negative rates like you're seeing in Poland. You've seen that in Northern Europe. You've seen that in Japan. You're starting to see that in Canada, and it could happen here too as well.
And we've got quite the variety of choices when it comes to our presidential candidates this year. And I remember back in 2000, Saturday Night Live did a skit because they were trying to make the case that Al Gore and George Bush were so much alike. They had the super candidate, Al W. Gore Bush.
I remember that.
Because they were saying if you're voting for him or him, they're pretty much the same. You can't really say that right now because we've got completely different candidates on every single person that's up there. There's not two of them that are even close.
I think so. I think I used to believe that, but as a financier and seeing things in the market and understanding how the Federal Reserve works, I believe in two parties but one head. And so I think you're going to have one that blows rhetoric to an identity of one group of people and one that's going to blow rhetoric that's going to cultivate the interests of another group. But I think when you look at things, when everything comes together, it's one head, and that one head is the monetary policy of this country, which are the central banks.
And speaking of banks, right now we're talking with Sal Buscemi, and he is managing director of Dandrew Partners, LLC, a former investment banker at Goldman Sachs, and we're talking to him about a lot of different things, but let's talk about the Fed right now. Speaking of banks, why won't the Fed increase rates anytime soon?
Well, I mean, there's a two-prong answer to this. Number one is they follow a bunch of models, and as you know, the real world doesn't work, John, looking at an Excel spreadsheet. There's many different factors, a human factor, things that happen that you can't really quantify into an Excel spreadsheet. So that's what they've been saying, and that's what they're using when they talk with their monthly or quarterly outlook when it comes to inflation and rates. The other part, and perhaps the more serious part, is that there's a lot more than just the $16 or $18 trillion in unfunded liabilities. And it's the equivalent of, well, are you going to raise your interest rate on your own credit card bill? If you owe $20,000, would you rather make the minimum monthly payment, or would you rather increase the monthly payment on yourself by charging yourself higher interest? So it's self-serving. And as long as the government can get away with just making, for the next 5 years, as long as they keep going down this track, making the interest rate payments only, then it makes sense if you're only paying yourself 0.25%. However, after, when you get up to around 1%, 1.25%, that's 5 times the total monthly payment that you owe to your beneficiaries, which are the bondholders, and they just don't want to do that.
Now, is this a good time for commercial real estate?
It's coming in to be a good time. There's a lot of opportunities there because we're starting to see right now the same thing that happened in residential, we're starting to see in commercial, and that is a lot of these loans are coming due, and there's going to be a great transfer of wealth there. I write about it a lot on my blog, thecommercialinvestor.com. That's thecommercialinvestor.com, and you can see that I've written some blog posts on there as it relates to where I see the market going. But I think, me being cynical at best, paranoid at worst, I think people are much better off investing in private partnerships rather than being into mutual funds where they have high lows and high fees, and there's really no alignment of interest. And I want people to remind themselves of that is, look at their mutual fund statement. Where's the alignment of interest between me and my broker that's selling me these assets, these mutual funds? As
we take a look at investments, can the average investor really break into the market right now? Is this a good time for them to say, hey, I'm going to dive in for the first time in my life?
Yeah, I think it is a good time to do it. It's not as hard. The one thing I like about it is that it's secured and insured. And that's something that you're not going to find in the stock market. You could have something, God forbid, another terrorist situation happen domestically that's going to drive the stock market down. You're seeing all these things happen where you don't have any control. With commercial real estate or residential real estate, you're always in control. It's secured and insured. And I advise people to get involved into private partnerships. Now that they've relaxed a lot of crowdfunding, you'll see that it's a lot easier for these people to get involved with less than, some of them are as low as $10,000, $5,000. They can get into these crowdfunded deals. And that's really what's driving a lot of growth in the sector right now, is that the smaller investor for the first time since, since the days of Joe Kennedy running the, 1933, can get involved into these transactions with little money into it and without having to assume a lot of risk. And they're also investing alongside qualified operators, too, as well, who they do have an alignment of interest with.
Again, visiting right now with Sal Buscemi, and he's, in addition to a wealth of information about the investing, he's also an author, and I want to make sure we talk about your book, Making the Yield. How long did it take to put this book together?
That was a result of about 17 years and $45 million of making loans, everything that I've learned. And, a lot of people would come up to me and say, hey, Sal, you know what? You seem like you know what you're doing. How about I give you some money to work with? And I said, well, why don't you do it yourself, at the time before we started funds to do this? And they said, tell me how to do this. And so I wrote a book on it, which is really the cynic's way to make these loans, where you're wearing your belt, suspenders, and life jacket, and you're not going to get in any trouble. I think a lot of people are lured to real estate because they think it's bulletproof, but it's not. Remember, there is a human component to it, and this is my operating manual that I put together for people to really learn how to get into this. Now, of course, we manage people's money, too, as well, but as far as the book is concerned, I always tell people before they invest with us, they want to read the book to understand everything as if they're investing alongside of us.
And the book, again, is called Making the Yield, and I see the website is makingtheyield.com. Is that correct?
That's right. We're giving away 20 free copies plus shipping. I think shipping's like $5.95. For the first 20 people, we're going to give it away, a copy of the book and some other cool free things that come along with it, too, as well. So, people who are interested in learning this business and they want to be a banker themselves, whether they have no money of their own or they're using other people's money, we show you how to do that and how to be able to do that safely with the belt and suspenders approach.
Very cool. Again, makingtheyield.com is that website. Sal, thank you again for taking some time to chat with us here. I know this year you're going to probably get a lot of calls because there are a lot of people that are wondering, with all the things that are happening in one of the most interesting political climates of my lifetime, you're going to probably get a lot of calls with people asking questions. So thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Pleasure's mine.
And again, Sal Buscemi, Managing Director of Dandrew Partners, LLC, former investment banker from Goldman Sachs, and also the author of the book, Making the Yield. And I'll give you the website once again, makingtheyield.com. And if you'd like to read more, he's also the founder of Commercial Investor, and you can find the blog that he was talking about earlier at thecommercialinvestor.com. They offer the average investor tools, training, and access to engaging the market. The preceding broadcast you just heard has been executive produced by Lawrence Rassin, co-founder of PoliticalStorm.com, line produced, edited, and narrated by John Small from The John and Heidi Show and from Sunny Radio. This program is expressly for PoliticalStorm.com and its affiliated networks and was recorded on Wednesday, March 23rd, 2016. For PoliticalStorm.com, I'm John Small.